on in. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you know these two, they have a jam-packed agenda that will probably go until 1:59. But hello, everybody. I'm LaShawn Gordon. I get the privilege of being the Director of Membership and Engagement at United Partners of Human Services. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We also have my colleague and our Executive Director, Amber Tynan, on the line. This is understanding and supporting the needs of undocumented individuals in the Big Bend region. And we have with us today Taylor Biro, who's with the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence. And Taylor is also the chair of one of our task forces, and we actually do a lot of partnering with her. We also have a new friend, Daniela Donoso, who is with Legal Services of North Florida. And they are going to educate us all today. So I'm going to turn it over to them so we can get going.
Awesome. I'm going to share my screen. And put it in. All right. So thank you so much, LaShawn, and thank you to United Partners for Human Services for having us. So as she mentioned, my name is Daniela Donoso. I'm an Equal Justice Works Fellow sponsored by Greenberg and Traurig and the Florida Bar Foundation and hosted by Legal Services of North Florida, and joined by Taylor Biro, the Director of Strategic Initiatives with the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence. And before we jump into the agenda today, the jam-packed agenda, Taylor and I just wanted to take a moment and talk about sort of the lens that we're looking, that we're approaching this work with. For myself, I grew up undocumented. I came to the United States when I was 6 months old. And when I came to FSU in 2012, I joined a student-led advocacy organization that advocated for undocumented student rights, and then became the student program coordinator with the Center for the Advancement of Human Rights, helping immigrant victims of crime with their immigration petitions. And really through this work, and obviously from personal experiences, have really tried to understand the gaps that we see with this population. And because of that, I decided after law school to pursue an Equal Justice Works Fellowship that is focused on creating a comprehensive immigration law program in North Florida, with the goals being direct legal representation, but also creating institutional memory for Legal Services of North Florida to serve immigrant victims of crime, and then also helping facilitate sustainable agency and community outreach, which is one of the reasons that I'm helping lead the Undocumented Youth and Adult Task Force, which we'll talk more about. And I will turn to Taylor.
Awesome, thank you. Some of y'all know me. I've worked with youth who are experiencing homelessness here in the Big Bend for the past 10 years now, and I have a huge focus on kids who have been sexually exploited or trafficked, as well as youth who are LGBTQ. And now with the Florida Council Against Sexual Violence, expanding that to a Florida-wide focus. But something that I've noticed, and one of the reasons why we came together to form this group, is kids who are undocumented, and really adults who are undocumented too. We would kind of get them in our services, and then we would throw our hands in the air and we'd say, I don't really know what to do with this kid. There's always a barrier or something that stopped us from really helping take that kid from where they were at to meeting their long-term goals. And we'll talk more about this too, but that's really what got me invested in doing this work alongside the task force and Daniela, is feeling like I didn't have all the answers and wanting to know what we could do in our community for these folks.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. So jumping into the agenda and what you can expect for today, we're going to go through an overview of the undocumented population in the Big Bend. We'll give a little bit more background on the task force, and then we'll actually workshop needs in the Big Bend of undocumented individuals. We'll get into breakout rooms and sort of talk through some scenarios that we've seen here, and sort of different approaches that we can take. And then we'll talk about the importance of service collaboration and the resources to continue this conversation. And then maybe if we don't end at 1:59, then we'll have time for questions and contact at the end. So we also want to make sure that in this space, we use the right language. And so Taylor and I will be, you'll hear us use undocumented or unauthorized. We will never use the word illegal to describe someone because no person is illegal, only actions are illegal. And so wanted to make sure we frame that. And then also to be on the same page, we're going to define together, what does it mean to be undocumented, right? So being undocumented in the US is someone who is present without any lawful immigration status. So this might be because someone entered on a US on a visa that has subsequently expired and they overstayed, or someone who entered the United States without any kind of inspection, or someone who had obtained immigration status and then subsequently lost his or her status. So, okay, so someone doesn't have lawful immigration status. So what does that mean? So really this could be someone who might not have access to specific things like a social security number, a driver's license, a bank account, insurance, and then of course the social stigma or discomfort about their home life. And when we really think about what does it mean to be living undocumented, right? So often people say there are people that are living in the shadows is what you'll hear. And really what this is referring to is an access problem. It's people who are at risk of victimization and discrimination because, they might be threatened with deportation, or they might be threatened with law enforcement action if they don't do X, Y, and Z. Right. And so, and also that judgment of being undocumented. And you hear so many things on the news, villainizing people and communities, but also that fear of law enforcement because local law enforcement agencies are working with federal agents. And then lack of familiar support. People might be moving to this country without any kind of support from their families, or more often than not fleeing their countries. And then, of course, like we talked about, and we'll continue to talk about, it's really an access problem. So you think of anything that you put your social security number on, anything you need a driver's license for, even sometimes just volunteering, right? But access to transportation, access to housing, access to bank loans, access to identification, and then really importantly, access to information. A lot of people who are undocumented might not know that they do have rights in this country. And again, that just circles back to having to live in the shadows, right? And then, of course, if at any point Taylor and I use language or say something that you're not sure about, please interrupt us and let us know so we can address that. And then just this morning, so the Migration Policy Institute presented on these statistics on the characteristics of the unauthorized immigrant population today in the US. So you can see some of these statistics. I mean, 29% are homeowners, over 60% have lived in the US for 10 plus years. 35% are who are at least 15 live with at least one minor US citizen child. 22% are married to a US citizen. So, I mean, these are the communities and the people that we're talking about, people that really already have very strong ties to the community, but there may be services that they're not able to access. And we'll do our first polling question. So have you or your agency ever worked with an undocumented individual? This is fun seeing it in live action.
Give it another second or two and then we'll close it. All right.
Great. So, I mean, you can see almost 60% of you guys have, and another 20% are not sure. So that's important. And I'll put. Okay, so yeah, so are there undocumented individuals in the Big Bend? So you guys just answered that, right? So yes, and we think of Florida, we think of agriculture, we think of tourism, education, job opportunities, family reunification, and fleeing violence. Again, are just some reasons that many immigrants settle down in the Big Bend. So we know that they're here, right? So, okay, they're here, they're living undocumented. So why is this important? So we've seen that a majority of social services lack the capacity to serve this population. And we talk about capacity, it might look like a lack of institutional memory for your agency. Maybe one person knew what to do and now they're gone, right? A lack of access to updated information. Immigration policies change every single day. So, I still struggle to keep up with everything going on. A lack of internal policies or procedures. Like Taylor said earlier, sometimes it's just a Band-Aid. Sometimes it's just finding an immediate solution when there really needs to be more internal policies in place. And then, of course, language barrier is a huge access problem in North Florida. And as someone who grew up in Miami, knowing that there are a lot of resources down there, and knowing, what we can do to work together to help solve that. So I'll let Taylor talk about, why all of these access problems, how the task force got started.
Awesome, thank you. So the task force started with, a few years ago, really with a kid that I was trying to find services for through the outreach program I was working with, and he was undocumented, and he also was living with a disability, and he was experiencing homelessness and had no family around to offer any support. And so we were trying to figure out what long-term services, how can we put interventions in place to keep him from being trafficked, because he was at risk of that with his current situation, and how do we link him up with housing? How do we get him an ID? How do we this and that? And we were also worried as, a program of how much we could really connect with other providers on, just because of safety, especially under, the previous administration, knowing like what was safe for us to do with this youth. And what that really resulted in is a lot of people, I say again, throwing their hands in the air and not really knowing what to do, and this kid getting bounced around a little too much. And so from that point, we were like, we really need to invest in figuring out what's going on with other resources. We need to connect with folks who are already doing this work and strengthen our program to be equipped for when the next kid comes through. We have a procedure, we know the resources, we have the referrals in place and our partners to rely on. And so that's kind of where this was born, is just connecting with people in our community who already work. And something else important as we kind of go through this training is to note, what internal policies do you have that we might not even think of that could be changed to make it a little bit better for these kids. So I do a lot of training for LGBTQ kids, like I've talked about, and I've found some similarities when we start to do this work, is that once you start talking about it and once you start diving into the topics, people really want to look at their agencies and they want to see what changes they can make to make it safer. A lot of us in social services, we're the gatekeepers to someone's success. We're the gatekeepers to that next step for somebody. And so us making sure we're action oriented and asking the right questions, that's where this task force really comes in. So this is a collaborative group. If you want to go to the next slide, I think it says who's in the group. Yeah. So these are the folks who are currently in the group right now. We have a lot of folks with legal background, which is wonderful. We also have some local partners that you'll recognize, like Carney Center and Refuge House. And so some folks come in just from time to time, just when they have a youth or an adult that they want the task force with, and other people there monthly trying to build capacity for the overall community. So we really have a pretty diverse and comprehensive group currently. Always room for more though, of course. You can go to the next one. Our goals are to do two things really. One, to make sure that folks who are undocumented know where to get services and it's safe to get services. And two, that those providers out there who are doing work but might not have adequate policies or might not know what to do, that they're being educated to be able to build their capacity so that we're filling some of the gaps in our community. Because as you'll see as we dive more into this training, we have a lot of things that we're doing well, but there's a lot of gaps and places where, you know, especially for housing, there's not really a spot that you can turn to. For education, it gets a little, so really trying to, one, let folks know that the services are out there, let clients know the services are out there, but also expand to make sure what we currently have is just stronger and less gaps. You can go to the next one. Another poll. Let's see. How do I close this one? All right. So does your organization have funding restrictions to serve undocumented individuals? Have you run into any brick walls or barriers or limitations with your funding when you try to work with folks who are undocumented? Give it a few more seconds. I see Miss Maisha in the chat saying yes. Thank you. All right, we'll give it a couple seconds. And then we'll show some results. Pretty even, really even across the board. So some folks have and others not so much.
Thought someone would break the tie.
I know. Oh, we've got another not sure. Maybe that breaks the tie.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we can go directly into the next poll question. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So stop sharing this one. And... All right. So does your agency have policies or procedures in place to address working with folks who are undocumented? And this goes, you know, anybody can really answer this. I know sometimes we think, well, I didn't write the policies. I don't really look at them, so I don't know. But when you're met by somebody who's undocumented as a client and they need services, do you know already what to do? Those are my chickens. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so a lot more no's.
All right, I'm going to share it. Yeah, that's not surprising either. And back to what I was saying earlier, it's not that, or something that we found is that people want to make changes. They want to have effective and comprehensive policies that serve folks who are undocumented. And it's just the, you know, where's the information? How do I do it the right way? So that's part of what this group really wants to step in and help with.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. So now what we're going to do is workshop through some scenarios together. So we are going to get into 3 different breakout rooms, and we're going to put in the chat 3 different scenarios. So group 1 will be scenario 1, group 2, scenario 2, group 3, scenario 3. And really the goal is just for you guys to, there's questions in there, talk through that. It can be, you know, you can be wearing your agency hat from where, you know, ever you work. But you can also put yourself in the shoes, like if you're supposed to be an educator, talk through what you think, you know, you may be able to do. So, Taylor, I can put.
I'm ready. I just got to hit go. Let me know when y'all ready.
Do you want to put the scenarios in the chat or do you want me to?
Here, I got it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so you should see your scenarios in the chat when you go to your breakout rooms. And how long do you think it'll be, Daniela? How long do you think we'll have folks in there for?
We'll have them in there maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
All right.
See you in a minute.
Awesome.
Ooh. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we should give them the full 5.
You're right. Yeah. Plus, we're doing pretty good on time.
Yeah.
Because we said 30 minutes. So, I mean,
Katrina and Giselle, do you need help being moved over?
I turned my video off so I can rest my face. I've been told I have resting happy face, so it gets exhausting here. Yeah.
how long do you, okay, so if they have 5 minutes to talk about it, and then we'll do like, whatever, do like 5 minutes to talk through each one.
Yeah, I think so. Because we're 10 minutes till halfway through, right?
Giselle, do you need help being moved over?
Giselle may have stepped away for a minute.
Okay.
We are, so if we have 30 minutes starting now, we'll end at 2:50 to do the rest of it, which I think we gave ourselves like 5 minutes to finish.
Yeah, cool.
So it doesn't matter.
We're still recording, so just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It does matter. I'm go-
You know, it's a good sign when people don't pop out right away.
Yes.
Because I've been in some where I'm like, let me pop out right now.
Yeah. You pretend like you froze, you know. That's good. Wow, they're taking the whole minute. Fine.
So I was gonna read through the whole thing together, right?
I think this is the part people will really enjoy too, is kind of processing that.
It's quick.
Welcome back, folks.
Yeah, I heard someone say that was quick.
Yeah, that was Jonathan.
You are correct, Jonathan. We could talk for hours, right, about each scenario.
Yeah.
And we
Cool.
do in the task force.
Good point, Taylor. Do you want to keep talking?
All right.
Okay.
So everyone is back.
Awesome. So we do want to hear some ideas. So we're going to go through each scenario, and then the groups that were in that scenario, if they want to share sort of their strategies and what they talked about. So this first one, Cindy's in 4th grade. Her father is always on time to pick her up from school. One day, Cindy's father does not show up. Her mother does not live in this country and tells you Cindy's father was picked up by ICE and is now in detention. Do your current policies respond to this crisis, and how could you change them so that they do? Does anyone from group 1 want to share what they talked about?
In group 1, we acknowledge that most of our programs probably wouldn't, but we don't have a policy related to it. And we probably wouldn't know exactly what to do. I know I'm familiar with PACE. If the student is Latino, that would probably be the first place that I call. But if the student was any other, nationality, they didn't speak Spanish, then I really wouldn't know where to go in that situation.
Yeah.
So one thing would be to at least figure out how to connect before the situation happens, is figuring out how to connect with agencies, or at least know who the agencies are, that if a situation ever presents itself, we'll know exactly, some of the people that we can call and ask questions.
Great. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, you identified a social service agency that you may be able to call, and then also acknowledging that having safety planning ahead of time could be really helpful. And you're absolutely right. So we're not going to talk through a lot of the quote unquote solutions or strategies. Really, we're trying to workshop through the problems, but having a safety planning in place where a child knows a different family member's phone number, or somebody has a power of attorney for that child is a good idea. Great. Thank you, group one.
Well, I would choose to be in group 2 now. I didn't talk with anybody, but I have a little contribution.
Great.
Yeah,
For group 2?
yes. Well, we didn't see questions for group 2. It's just somebody shared the question of Cindy and the LGTB violence issue. That's all we had. So I will only answer in those two too.
Great. Yeah.
Do I go ahead?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Well, my own contribution is that to the support organization, I should call a known advocacy program that is taking care of this, because the immigration, if people hear about it, it's not exactly what they are doing. That's what I wanted to jot down when you were talking to us about the whole introduction of the program, because I didn't know that we have all these people that you showed their agency on this training, that they are here in Tallahassee. One is a good connection for even the people that need this support to know that there's a place to go. But for Cindy now, there's nothing else we can do than contacting the children and family for her own safety, or any foster care for Cindy. And we will connect to this particular people that you've called here, if they have the power of attorney, as you said, to go and bring out his father and his father's accommodation, maybe to one of the homeless place or whatever. And this is the time that the agency that should be responsible here in Tallahassee that we are not aware of, because no matter we are citizens, we have more connections, because people that doesn't speak language, they will always come to us through the church or any side, but we don't know where to send them. Because even if this happened like this, because Cindy was in school, there are millions of people that it has happened to, but their children was not in school and they are all crashed forever. Now I'll go to the violence problem of the LGBT person. I can't remember the name if he gave us one, because this person really needs an interpreter. And if you want to help him as a student, there is always now a great software that might be provided by the nonprofit that's doing this program to allow him or her to start learning at least the little sentences in that language to go by for the meantime, and connecting this particular person to other tribal support from the church, from students, because in every university now, there are things like that. That is another supportive way. I did not get the 3 scenario or whatever to say, because when we are talking about immigration, it's very painful for people that are strangers here like me. No matter we think we are citizens, hundreds of immigrants that are in bad shape will never get no help. And even if the people that looked out for this help, they don't even know where to go. And if they come, they don't give it to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying
that. Daniela, can you also put the Miss Edith at the end? There's actually going to be a Google link. So for those that want to continue to talk and possibly be connected to resources, Daniela will be on that Google link.
Yes, ma'am. Where is the Google link?
Yes. Yeah. I will share that in the end. I will put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for participating, for sharing,
Also
for being vulnerable with us.
For LGBTQ, for the transgender girl, pointing out a potential counseling too, because we talked about violence as well. And that's something that we noted for her, is that there's not a lot of folks who offer counseling in town for free that is helpful for folks who are trans and also for folks who speak Spanish too. And so that's something as we go through these to think, if this girl were to come to your services, could you effectively serve her and accept her and allow her to get the same services, equitably as everybody else too. And then one more thing to note is being trans sometimes has to do with transitioning and wanting to transition to the gender that you are. And so the medical issues that would come into place with kind of getting those services. And then one thing.
Leo has her hand up.
Oh, I was about to plug Leo too. Leo, go ahead and plug what I was probably about to say.
Just wanted to mention that if you do find yourself in this scenario, with someone in this scenario, Southern Scholarship Foundation offers free rent housing for students that want to go to college, and we have no restriction on citizenship, and we are welcome to the LGBTQ community. So please send them my way because I will receive them with open arms.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Awesome. Great. So we'll move on to scenario number 3, unless anyone else in group 2 wanted to share anything else that they talked about. Okay. So scenario 3, you notice that your neighbor recently had 2 minor girls move in with him. You have seen the 2 girls around the mobile home park and leaving for work to the Pine Needle farm with the man during school hours. You want to help the girls and not cause more harm. How do you help and who do you call? Does anyone in group 3 want to talk about what they came up with?
Okay, I'll jump in, but I'm just going to pass the torch for the people who spoke. We had a discussion about kind of trying to identify the man and trying to kind of understand the relationship with the girls. However, we lucked out on our group because we had Maria, and I apologize, it's the first time I met Maria, so I don't know her last name, but she knows who she is because she was in the group. And she is the person we call. And so I'm going to pass it to her because she's got great information. I was taking notes as fast as I could when she was telling us. So Maria, will you step up and
Sure.
tell us about what you do?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Well, our own Dr. Pouncey.
What I was saying is that all of the school districts in the state of Florida, we are connected to a migrant education program. Pine needle raking and anything is also part of the agricultural program. So we all have home advocates or recruiters, as they're called, that if you call the migrant program, because clearly we all want to find all these children and make sure they're enrolled, we can go on behalf of the school district, so it's not so threatening. And we in this area, North Florida, and the Panhandle, actually from Taylor to Escambia now, we go either in the evenings, on the weekends, whatever it takes to find them and talk to them and make sure that they know what the laws are as far as minors going to school. We identify what the connection is. So we're not threatening. Now, if there is a situation where we feel that there's more to that, we have, because we do abide by the laws, we will call it in. But many times they have a relationship. It could be an uncle, it could be somebody that's trying to help them to send back money to their home country. But we also make sure that they understand that they have to abide by our laws, and we will go with them to enroll them in school, to take them to school, and we keep up with them. So, and you have that throughout the state of Florida. So that might be one way not to scare them off. And because we've also had situations, parents, people that don't know go knock on their doors and the next day they're gone. So we wouldn't even be able to find out what type of situation they were living in. So for this area, you can call us because we serve 17 school districts. You can call the PAC migrant program, and then we'll dispatch home visitors to go, because we do it even for Leon County, Gadsden County, and all those districts in between.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Pouncey, for sharing your wisdom being here. and for your organization and all the work that you guys do.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question for Dr. Maria, because your question to her was not to cause trouble, because it's easy said than done. If an immigrant minor that is working is already telling you that the person that brought her is not treating her like a minor, or did I not hear your question very well?
What I was saying,
Because
what
if
I was,
anybody go to this minor girl who has already started an adult life because of her condition, and a school representative goes there, you know what that means? What that means is that there is a big and huge trouble. But if you can go to the person first who brought them, if you can connect to somebody who is more advanced, who can even listen to you, and who can be able to do this in a better transition, that is the only way you can even try anything. Because I love what you said too, because you said once somebody knock on that door, they're gone. So it's very good we understand the situation of immigrant illegal people, even the adults, how much more minor girl, you don't even know if she's already in a sexual transition, that maybe she's already being sold, making money. You don't even know what she's about. So you will always start from whoever that is an adult there.
oh no, we don't go to the children. We go to the adult or to the crew chief or to the owner of the trailer park. We do our best because we don't want to, if it is a bad situation, we certainly don't want to endanger the children. We have a lot of experience in communicating with the adults or with the crew. In some cases, I've found the crew chief is the one that's just because they arrived at the door and said, we need work. And so we do our best also to connect them with other services. You know, sometimes we found it that we had to provide food because they didn't have enough. So I can't tell you that we're always 100% successful, but we have a lot of experience working with undocumented folks because we don't ask. Sometimes they tell us, but you know, we want to be able to, for them to communicate with us. So yes, we go to the adults. We're not going to go straight to the children because the children don't know how to respond to that. And if they are scared, you know, we don't want them to put them in a worse situation. So we do our best as far as
I think the best thing is to
great. We're going to move on to scenario numbers 4 through 6 just for the because of time. So we're going to go back into more breakout rooms. So I'm going to put those 3 in the chat, and scenario 4 will be group 1, scenario 5 will be group 2, and scenario 6 will be group 3. So it's in
And also adding that
the chat.
That was a perfect example of why we have the task force, because there are multiple experts in the room. And sometimes for folks like me who have not done this work for the years that Dr. Pouncey and Edith and Daniela have, it's really important to be able to lean on folks who can do this back and forth and know the ins and outs. So that was a perfect example. LaShawn, can you break us out into groups, please?
We're going.
Thank you.
Group 3, okay, group 1.
Does anyone need help getting into breakout rooms?
Miss Edith, are you good?
Yeah, I'm trying to be good. I can't see it properly, but I'm fine now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for asking.
Marcellus, how about you?
Please call me back after an hour. Please call me back.
I think it's going really well. And a really good example of why we have the group was good.
Right, right.
Cool. We're a little behind though. How do you think we're going to go through the next slides? Do you think we'll be okay?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll just ask people to quickly debrief
I think we
and
can
then get through.
always do a part 2 if we need to. So, if we don't get through part 1, we rename, we add more, and we just do a part 2 in March.
Yeah, this will be great to be able to dive in with folks who are like, okay, now, now I know that there's help out there. What are the policy changes? What are the things?
So I think like one of the trainings we did, Taylor, with the task force, this was education. The next training, it'll be a brief overview. And then from there, part 2 of the training, if you all are up for it.
Oh yeah. This is
Oh
fun.
yeah. Oh yeah. It went by so fast. Oh my gosh.
I told you, yeah. Oh yeah. I keep waiting for LaShawn and them to get involved with me, but it's yet to happen.
I think instead of reading it, like people can just read it on their own and I'll just ask people to debrief. No one can get tired of Taylor.
Oh, is that a challenge?
Good to have partners.
Yeah.
I know when I spoke with Ava and I was just trying to push her to just stay in North Florida for everything. She's like, Taylor would love this. She would love if we just put everything into this.
That's what I was saying too. I was like, yeah, it sounds great. Let's do it.
All right. I am giving the 2-minute warning.
Cool.
You can just give them 1 minute.
No, it's 1 minute and then it'll take about 50 seconds for them to come back.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I got you.
Cool.
Well, I guess that's the fun part for them. So
yeah. Cool.
Anything else we need to put in the chat? No, right?
I don't think so. The Southern Scholarship Foundation is such a good plug for that because they just did like a whole bunch of training for folks who are trans and like changed all their stuff and did stuff for undocumented kids.
That's awesome.
They're like, we're ready.
That's awesome. We've met, I remember meeting with them once, like the center, and talking about that, and just knowing they were there was just always awesome.
Yeah.
They did come to a couple of our meetings.
Yes. Yeah. Leo came for the first few.
Yeah. Okay. She sounded familiar. Okay.
Here's some folks coming back.
Great. So we are just going to jump in again in the interest of time. So Does someone that was in group 4 and spoke with their breakout rooms, did they want to share something they came up with of how to help Hannah?
Okay, so this is Margot again. We talked about, Hannah being on a student visa. We didn't, on an expired student visa, we didn't really know if she was still in school. But we did have a conversation about Southern Scholarship housing, if she was still actively in school. And I was an international student before. I don't know if the rules changed, but if you were on an active, even if your visa expired, as long as you didn't leave the country, you were still active if you were still in school. So we were hoping that that Hannah would still be able to qualify for maybe Southern Scholarship Foundation housing. And then we also talked about keeping up with a database of organizations where if there is an issue, we would know at least 1 or 2 organizations that we can call to be guided in the right direction.
Awesome. That's great issue spotting. That's great. Yeah.
And we
Hopefully
also mentioned, just a quick minute, we also mentioned about the Kearney Center, because they do have ways to get information to people, and also to register with Big Ben 211, because they have a directory that's online that could direct people in the right way as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyone in group 2 want to talk about scenario number 5?
I think Jim and I were took up most of the portion of that of the group in there. So one of the things that we discussed is that whether or not there is a Spanish speaker at an agency, particularly medical offices or hospitals often, that there is a provision under LEP or limited English proficiency under civil rights for to provide equitable access for folks who do not speak the primary language of the country, in this case English. And so in that case, what any agency could do is at least kind of link the individual with the agency and advocate on their behalf to ensure that they are going to have some kind of access. And generally, if there isn't an individual who speaks the language at that agency, it would be through a language line at least. The other thing that I've seen, so we certify the sexual assault centers across the state of Florida. And so often we also do what's called medical advocacy or accompaniment. And so potentially when you're sending someone who might face additional barriers, actually going with them often provides enough of that oomph for them to be treated more equitably in that place. And so when possible, of course, COVID is pretty serious. And so if you could do that safely, trying to link him up directly, and that might be doing a 3-way call, right? Like if you're doing it virtually, instead of like giving him a number to call, actually making that 3-way call and speaking to the person, making sure that they're doing that soft intro almost, so that this person knows that if they do run into any issues, that they're free to call you back and that you are a good person for them to be in contact with in the future. Did I miss anything? I know Jim had some stuff too.
Yeah, the only like her, we're federally funded, so we are obliged to have all different languages available, and so we have contacts with multiple folks that we can bring in to help use their language and be able to make them comfortable.
May I say something?
Awesome. We're going to move on to the next one because we only have 8 minutes left to finish.
Time.
So, but that was great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I didn't even know that about the shelters and going with someone to appointments. So that's great. So scenario number 6, did someone want to share that was in the breakout rooms? What you guys talked about with scenario number 6?
And we'll limit this one to 1 minute too, so we can jump on and make sure we have a follow-up for everyone.
I'll move us forward with the caveat is I provided no information and I just took notes. So I'm going to give you the highlights of the notes. I learned a lot, and it was a pleasure being in the group with everyone. One was to actually talk to the lady and explain to her how she might leave and what her rights would be. 2 would be to work with her to get a safe place or refer her, for example, refuge house. 3 would be legal assistance. And 4 might be how to get her documented. And 5 would be the cherry on the top for her to have her own income. And of course, there's lots of details and they don't necessarily come in that order, but that was all the great things that everybody on my group shared.
That's awesome. I love the holistic approach and thinking about the reality of the needs that this individual has. That's great. So that was a great debrief. And of course, there's so many different ways that we can help to protect families in the Big Bend. And we didn't even touch the surface really on all of the ideas that you guys touched on as well. Making a plan, power of attorney, again, that access to information, something as simple as this flyer, putting that in people's hands so that they know what their rights are. And then really for services collaboration, and I'll let Taylor touch on this, on what that looks like working together.
So that was really a perfect example of what we do in the task force. There are just so many nuanced situations when we're working alongside people. There are, little bits of if someone has a debt here in this corner, or if somebody is part of a different intersection of a community that makes them even more oppressed with getting services through certain systems. If somebody has family in one area, if mental health comes into play, if there's children, there's just so many different nuances to everybody because we're working with unique people. We never meet the same person twice, right? And so that's why this group has been so helpful. If you have somebody who you're working with, we've had folks who come in and they say like, this is, someone who needs some services. And then people, they talk together and they talk about, well, what about this? And what about this? And then everybody kind of takes a piece of the pie and says, I'm going to go back and work on this for this person. And so this family or this individual who's undocumented at the end of you bringing them to the table has a team of surrounded with them who's experienced, who's ready to help, and who has different experiences and different perspectives. So we're not missing any little things. One thing that I will say about the group that we do need is more people involved and people who have pieces of the pie where there aren't services that are set up to help people, like housing, like education, like employment. And so if that's something that you do, we want to connect with you. We want to help with your policies, look at your procedures and figure out like legally, what are you capable of doing and what are y'all willing and capacity wide able to do for this community that we know is here in town that needs and people all hands on deck for them. So that's kind of the goal, is to get everybody together, figure out what the gaps are, plug in to support each other, and then collaboratively come together to support each individual as we identify them.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Taylor. And with that, how can we be a resource to you? Obviously, having more partners at the table will help us, what Taylor said, be more collaborative and holistic in our approach. But also, as a task force, we've done presentations for guidance counselors. We've done presentations for social workers. If you need us to come in and talk about, what are the rights for undocumented people? How do I continue to implement policy into my organization? And what does that look like? Even just starting the conversation, if that's something that you're interested in, you can reach out to the task force and we can be a resource. If it's a fact sheet that you need to have for your employees, like if this person, if someone doesn't speak the language, this is what, we should do, or this is a language line and these are different resources. So we're super excited to be able to work alongside of the agencies to help do that. And that's why we're here. So take advantage of us. These are just some local immigration advocates, specifically immigration, a lot of them legal, that are working specifically with undocumented populations right now. That can be of assistance to you, and that are part of the work group. And then this is, so we meet as a task force monthly. We meet the third Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. I've put in the chat a stakeholder survey. So if you want to connect with us and you're okay with giving us your email, I will put you on our listserv and reach out. And then on the stakeholder survey, you can put if you are looking for services, if you're looking to start that conversation with a task force, if you need a presentation for guidance counselors, for educators, whatever it is, however we can help, go ahead and fill that out. And then this is my contact information. This is my email, my phone number. I will, I know this timing is not great, but I will be out of the office from February 8th through the 24th. So feel free to email me and leave me messages. I will get back to you as soon as possible. We also have a Google Meet link in the chat. If you want to continue this conversation literally right now, you can join that group because this will end at 3 in 2 minutes. And so if you want to join in the group meet, kind of like what Taylor was saying before we started, like, you know, the after when someone presents and then you want to go up to them and ask questions, or, you know, we don't really get to do that through Zoom. So we thought this would be a different way to do that. There won't be hors d'oeuvres or anything after that in the group meet, but you can come and we can just talk, you know, practically about how we can help your group. So we know this was quick. Thank you again to UPHS for letting us, giving us this platform to present. We're excited. We know there's a big problem. And again, sharing, you know, from my own personal experience growing up undocumented, but now doing the work, knowing that there's a lot that we can do in North Florida in terms of institutional memory. And we already have so many great experts here. And it's just a matter of connecting and building some of that policy. Anything you want to say, Taylor?
Thank you everyone for sharing this space with us and making this a priority for you all. I think that's the first step, is showing up and wanting to do something. So thank you for sharing this space with us. It's been great.
So thank you to the ladies. This was awesome. I think we all learned a lot. I just made an administrative decision that we were going to do a part 2 while you all were in the breakout room. So stay tuned for more information about that, because what we really want to do is some small group work and really kind of start to looking at agency policies and that type of thing. So you should see a flyer coming out from us in the next week or so. I re-put the Google link in the chat, so feel free to join the ladies afterwards. If you are a human service person, a social worker, case manager, even an ED or middle manager, this is super important. As someone who worked in a school for many, many years, I can tell you these scenarios come up all the time and people freeze. So this is really, really important information. So we're going to go ahead and close out for today. The training is recorded. So if you need a copy of the recording, send me an email and I will get that to you. Hey, Miss Stephanie, she's a teacher at one of the middle schools. She's trying to dismiss her kids and be on the training. Hey, Stephanie. And so reach out if you need the recording, and you all be safe, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.